move on to Nigel Farage. Reform UK supporters were waiting for smoke signals above Nigel Farage's country retreat. Would the Pope of Brexit bless his congregation with another political miracle, taking the leadership of the party for 6 weeks in an attempt to seal the fate of the Conservatives and potentially consign them to the political dustbin of history? Would the most consequential politician of his generation, achieved without entering high office or even the House of Commons, throw a cat among the pigeons and redraw the political map of this country? The answer? No, it was not to be. When it came to I'm a Celebrity, Nigel had a million or so reasons to enter the jungle. And to be fair, he won a new army of fans just by being himself. But it seems he's going to stay out of the political jungle. Now, for the next 6 weeks, Nigel will be actively campaigning for Reform UK. But when they enter the polling station, the British public are often mindful that they're voting for a leader. And technically, thanks to his decision to avoid a frontline role this week, a vote for Reform UK is now not a vote for Nigel Farage. Is he choosing America over Britain and Donald Trump over Westminster? Only time will tell. But has he missed the political opportunity of a lifetime to potentially become the new opposition? Has he rendered his own party, Reform UK, a lame duck? Or does this give Reform the chance to step out of Nigel's shadow? Mike Parry.
Well, come off. Reform without Nigel Farage is nothing, is it? It's nothing.
We saw what happened with UKIP when he left the place.
Exactly. I mean, I'm very disappointed with Nigel. I like him a lot and, you know, mixed with him a lot. Had a couple of pints of beer in the pub across the road from these studios quite often when he stepped outside for a cigarette, man of the people and all that. But I'm very disappointed at the way he's exited politics in this country by, in my view, not being bold enough to step up. Look, there is a huge vacuum in politics somewhere here in this country. We're looking for a true leader, aren't we? A true leader. Now, he is a true leader. He could have stepped forward. In my view, Reform is now nothing, without Nigel. But I'm going to use a football analogy. Do you remember when George Graham left his last job in
95.
Football? Yeah, was that Spurs?
Sorry, no. It was Tottenham in 2001.
Tottenham 2001.
After winning the FA Cup, I think.
No. It was just qualified for the semi-final.
Yeah, exactly.
FA Cup.
And he came away and he said, I've got one great job in football left in me, but I'm going to be very selective what it is. That's more or less what Nigel said this morning.
George Graham never worked again.
He never worked again. He kept saying he was approached by Newcastle and he said they weren't a big enough club at the time, OK. And that's more or less what Nigel said this morning. I've got one great political job left in me, but it's not now. That means, in my view, it's all over for Nigel Farage as any sort of political power in this country.
What do you think? What is Nigel's master plan, Aidan?
I was with him less than 2 weeks ago. I was chatting to him for about half an hour. He seemed at ease with the world. He seemed to look. He looked as good as I've seen him look. He really did. He was fantastic. Great company as always. Wonderful charisma. He has spent enough of his time with parties who aren't ever going to get a sniff of power. We saw it with UKIP, various other guises, other brands that were launched and soon came and went. Irrespective of his personality, he is not going to lead one of those parties into government. Our system is simply not built for it. I think he takes a break. I think he's 60 years old or thereabouts. He takes a break. There's a huge vacuum in the Tory party. That's where he'll end up.
OK, what do you think about that? That is a bombshell. So I think Aidan is suggesting that the Tories lose the election and Nigel comes to the rescue and pretty much says... OK,
what, as a Tory?
I think it's quite a shrewd decision in terms of his own options because, from what I understand, it would have been quite difficult for him to have suddenly taken over from Richard Tice as leader of Reform.
No, but he could have easily, couldn't he? He was senior to Richard Tice.
The party's got no infrastructure for a start.
Well, quite. So I think he would have found himself nominally heading something which potentially isn't going to make that big of a difference in these coming elections. And then he would have been saddled with the reputation of having sort of gone down with something that was a bit of a busted flush.
He got 4 million votes in 2015, I think it was. He didn't get a sniff of power, nowhere near. Wasting his time.
No. And stood 7 times, I think, for Parliament
That's
as
the
an
electoral
MP.
system, not Nigel, isn't it?
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, individually stood, is it 7 times?
Yes.
To become an MP
Eight
and never been voted in.
Tell me about your theory about the Tories. How does Nigel enter
Cross
the
over.
Tory party, and how does he rescue it?
He was a member of the Tory party some years ago, so he's not completely detached from it.
How would it work?
I think he would go in there as leader. I don't think it necessarily would be to
leader
gain
of the
to
Tory
gain power.
party?
Yes, I do, but I don't think.
Well, hang on, he'd have to rejoin the Tories first.
Yeah, I know.
wouldn't he?
Yeah, what's the problem with that?
Well, I mean, it's quite a machination.
I think
Do they
it's a
find
job.
a safe seat for him?
Yes, I think that's not a difficult thing to do. There's plenty of safe seats around they can have. Half of them are leaving for a start, and some of them will be safe seats. But secondly, I can see him go back in there. I could see him performing the role that Michael Howard did from 2002 to 2005.
What, you mean lose an election?
No, he lost the election, but he made up the distance. He did the job that William Hague should have done.
Yeah.
Why would he want to do that?
Okay, well, he's in his 60s. What else? What other route? Is there any other possible route to power?
Joanne, is it possible that Nigel Farage in the next Parliament becomes Tory leader?
I think it's extremely impossible.
I think it's extremely unlikely.
And yet, if the Tories face an existential threat in 6 weeks' time, it might be unlikely, but it might be essential.
Well, I think there are credible but relatively unknown people will be vying to lead the Tory party after the next election.
Unknown though, aren't they? Surely?
Michael, briefly,
they
what do
are.
you think
Yeah.
Nigel
Why would you
saves
have
the Tories if they lose the election?
Well, look, Johnna knows more
Is
about
that his
politics
plan?
than I do.
Is that his secret squirrel
No,
plan?
but hang on. How can he suddenly take off the cloak of reform and become a Tory again without insisting that he takes
Well, he's
reform
an antidote.
policies
He'll be an antidote to anyone
into
that's
the
last few
Tory
years.
party?
I can't see that.
Okay, well, I think what it would
I
happen...
I think he's told us what he wants to do. He wants to go off and have a big role with
In America.